That's right. That's right. So hey, kick us off, man,
All
and
right.
and then I'll yeah, you do intro. I'll take it from there, and then we'll go
Okay.
back and forth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 23, if you can believe it, of the Faitheism Project Podcast. My name is Alan Katz. I have always been grateful to Hebrew School for making me the atheist I am today.
And my name is Randy Lovejoy, and I am a pastor without a church, but still in one united country at this point, and thankful for that. So yeah, and I'm excited that we're almost to a quarter of a century in terms of our episodes here on this thing. You know, two away. We're gonna have to celebrate somehow.
Really and truly, it's our stories during plague time. Ours is a plague time, interesting plague time story.
Yeah.
And yet the plague continues. The plague continues in so many different ways.
Yep.
Well, America feels increasingly like a powder keg. Its fuse lit and running. It's making it hard to have conversations about spirituality, which is our preference here at the Faitheism Project Podcast. But perhaps spirituality at the end of the day will be our, well, for want of a better word, salvation. Maybe spirituality, unblemished by dogma, will be the common ground that gives us an opening to speak to each other again without trying to kill each other. But how do we get there? That's the border wall we can't get over. Maybe we haven't been entirely honest with ourselves about what our problem really is. Trying to solve the wrong problem with the wrong solutions, well, that's never going to fix anything. Same token, trying to fix the wrong problems with the right solutions. We have to be stone cold clear on what our problems are to begin with, or what's the point? There are signs, plenty of them. From the social media already pouring forth as the investigations begin. Why did this happen? Why are we at this place? Who made this happen? The more we learn, the uglier the truth becomes. But then the truth will set us free, provided we're bold enough to confront it honestly. But can we?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's, that is gonna, I think that is the real gauntlet that's been laid before us by this odd confluence of events that we spoke of previously, that if you had written a script describing this, people would have just said like, oh, come on, there's no way all of the things that have happened in the last year could occur. But as I, look at it, that is the challenge. I mean, the challenge is, can we figure out what the problem is and confront it? Or is it going to continue to, well, we're past the festering stage. I think we've already been through years of
The door is
festering.
open and running.
And we're kind of at the stage where it's like, either we heal this thing or we amputate, and we've got to figure this thing out. But at the same time, I think, Alan, one of the things that makes even these conversations just so hard for people, it's not just the level of noise, for lack of a better word, of the political conversation, but it's also that we've been through a pandemic for a year, and it's really messed with our lives. And I know a number of people that are just tired to the point that right now they're just unplugging. It's just like, I can't even listen to any news right now. It's just, I'm just not in a great place to be able to handle that. And I totally understand that, but we can't just disengage either, because there is a challenge that is before us that, the 20th is going to be a critical moment. But even after that,
there's a reason why, but there's a reason why news is coming at us so fast.
Yeah. That's, that there are people that are unplugging, but we have a challenge before us where we can't do that for too long. But then just wondering, how are you doing in terms of stamina, in terms of you know, where you see things as being, what we need to do next, you know, that kind of thing.
You know, I'm the storyteller in me always wants to see, you know, I think in terms of the story threads and how everything's going to play out. Um, I think we're unfortunately our wishful thinking was that for 2021 was going to be a lovely year in compared to 2020, and I don't think that's going to be the case yet. I think we've got some hell to endure before we get there. I think where the people who showed up on last Wednesday for the insurrection, I think a lot of those people are beginning to learn some very hard lessons about how expensive it is if you're going to commit that kind of crime.
Yeah.
When suddenly someone says, you know, that's a crime. A lot of the ones who seem so proud when they were taking their picture and playing it over social media. I just saw one of them. It was really funny. He was really shocked. He said to the FBI agents as they showed up, he said, "Wow, that was really quick." He was really shocked because, you know, they weren't expecting this to take place. This part where they were going to get caught, and suddenly all the social media they use, all the texting, all the messaging back and forth is suddenly, guys, you were conspiring to commit sedition. You have a problem. As you know, never mind just getting caught and spending a night in jail. There are two words that are going to haunt every one of these people: billable hours. The lawyering to do all this is going to be stunningly expensive. And on top of that, you know, they're going to lose their jobs. A lot of them, some of them already have, because nobody wants to be, you know, nobody wants to be connected to someone who does something like this. Hey, you put your money down, you take your chance. All right. You know, you want to ignore the fact that you really shouldn't do this. Okay. You're a big boy. You're big girls. Come on. We all know what we know, and we all do what we do for the reasons that we do them. And I'm simply saying this. I think one of the things that we all have to do is we all have to put on our big boy pants and our big girl pants, and we have to begin accepting responsibility for what we do.
Yeah,
that's cool. Hey, you know, if you want to become a representative or a senator, you take an oath, and when you take that oath, you say certain things and you swear to uphold that oath. And if you do something that violates your oath, like, you know, and it says there right there, you can't do seditious things. Well, then don't be surprised when you not lose your job during, never mind waiting for an election, you will lose your job right here, right now. Yeah. There are a number of people who in the weeks coming are going to begin to suffer the consequences of stuff that they shouldn't have done. And it will be time consuming. It will be very expensive. Some of these people are about to bankrupt their families for a generation, at least. They're going to cause profound harm to their families that they didn't mean to cause. Hey, you put your money down, you took your chance.
The other side of that too, to me, not the other side, but another part of what you're saying to me is, number one, really think through the strategy of what you're willing to sacrifice for. Because to me, it was incredibly foolish and wasn't all that hard to see if you just stop and think for a minute. Which I feel like, you know, the easiest example is the people with the cell phones and all that. It's like, what do your take, like the guy that took a picture of himself, or it was where he was sitting in Pelosi's chair or something. What did he think was going to happen? I mean, did he really think that they were going to overturn everything in such a way that he was going to be proclaimed a hero? Or
yes.
But see, that's, to me, that's really foolish. It's like, how could you even sort of get to that point? And so I guess on one side, think before you act. What is it that you're going to sacrifice for? And
well, whose purpose were they serving by showing up there?
Well, right. I mean,
were they serving? Well, were they serving their family's purpose? Maybe. Were they serving?
Not in most cases. It's
Donald
not
Trump's
family.
Hey,
the people I've read about, at least they because of their growing commitment to this action, they were already fraying their relationships with some family members because they were prioritizing this. It's more important for me to go from whatever town I was in to drive to DC and break into a building and imagine that that's going to bring me glory than actually continuing to build good relationships with the people that I know and am actually committed to. I mean, to me, that's part of the fallacy of this. Is it's almost like dreams of grandeur that make you think that you're more than you really are. And I will put at every level of this conversation we're having. I think everybody you're talking about at all levels that are just going to get reamed from this thing, part of the problem was they thought that their big boy pants were bigger than they actually were. And what they're going to find out now is, oh, I thought I mattered a lot more than I actually do to the future of the nation. And they're going to, like you said, I think their entire lives, I don't, they're going to pay lawyers, but they're also going to do jail time. They're also going to get fined. Yes. They've lost their jobs and livelihood. I mean,
expensive, right. Like they can't believe.
And here's the ultimate thing. All of that is not going to change the country in the direction they wanted it to go. So it is a complete waste.
Yes. That's absolutely true. It's a complete waste. Irony of it all. It's the most beautiful.
And that's where, the pastor side of me, I just feel sad beyond the other things, but it's like, what a waste this was. What a waste. Even the woman that was shot and killed. What a waste. What a waste of a life.
Agree. No argument. Now let's move a little bit further up the food chain, because this is a complicated. There are the people on the inside who were helping to coordinate this.
Yeah.
And it turns out there were people. Gosh, there was the what's the name? That newly printed representative from, what is she, from Colorado? The one who I can't remember her name, but
Holly,
but she was the one who was saying, Nancy Pelosi's office is over there.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert of Colorado joins us right now.
Yeah. There was one of the new representatives. She's a QAnon. She was pointing them toward Nancy Pelosi's office, and it turned out that the day before there were several of these reps they were showing people around the Capitol building. They were giving tours to the very people who showed up the next day and were helping coordinate.
Well, tell me this, though. I mean, my feeling is, as things surface and the evidence is presented, the things like what you've talked about, I don't think there is nowhere near a majority of people in this country that would say, oh, that's a good thing. The vast majority will slam that really in a really tough way. And I think even with Cheney from Wyoming, she stood up.
She articulated it beautifully. She did.
She showed some real courage and some real backbone. And that's what I hope we see more of, is people saying, enough, but enough not in a way that they're playing politics, but it's like enough. I'm willing to lose my position for the sake of these things that, you know, we've agreed to, that I have promised to uphold. And yeah, I hope we get rid of anybody that's done anything that ridiculous. It's like, sorry, you're done. Bye. You know,
we will not let them play in any more of our reindeer games.
Exactly. No, you're right. And I mean, that's, you know, and that's the thing, is that all of that, in my mind, what could be a positive of this long-term down the road is if we really do root out the people that were willing to toss commitments they made to the Constitution, to the American way of governance, that we really are willing to toss them out and they do not have any more influence. And then we find the other people that rise to the surface that truly do have that kind of leadership and courage and vision that they can lead us forward. You know,
there was video of one of the a black Capitol Police Department officer who was being backed up the stairs, and he recognized that, oh my God, if they go that way, there will be. And again, this was supposed to be exponentially worse.
Yeah, yeah.
The bullet that we dodged is staggering. Only 5 people died. That they did not.
Right.
You know, there's.
If one of the representatives, one of them, any of them, had been killed in that, we would be, I don't know where we'd be as a country.
We are also learning that amongst the coordination were people like Paul, what was his name? Paul Gosar, the U.S. representative from Arizona. You know who Paul Gosar is?
No.
All right. Well, Paul Gosar was Paul Gosar's whole family has made campaign ads to say, don't vote for our brother. He's terrible.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
He is beyond the pale. And Gosar was actively I guess they've got, he was communicating with various of the people who, I guess he and several other representatives were helping to coordinate this whole effort. There is active communication between them and this effort. And Gosar honestly believes, I mean, you know, he's a true believer for what it's worth, that what he is doing is the morally right thing to do. He believes he is doing this for God.
Oh, does he say that?
Yeah, he's intensely religious.
Oh.
He's
right. Well, that leads our future conversation about religion and zeal gone wild. We'll talk about that, because that's depressing.
But I think that is part of what is in play here. You know, there's, unfortunately, you know, one of the beasts that is being fed here, you know, perhaps. But one of the beasts that's being fed here is Christian nationalism.
Yeah. I'd say nationalistic Christianity, just because I don't even want to put Christian first.
Well, I understand, but you know, it's
Can I respond with just
please.
A short little mini sermon?
Please.
All right, because you know, as is my tendency, I turn toward passages from the Bible, but the one I wanted to just
what is it with you?
I know it's so weird. I apologize, but you know, in Matthew 4, that's one of the Gospels that talks about Jesus's temptation. Early on in, you know, before he really kicks off his ministry, he goes out and is fasting for a long time. And there's this story about his being tempted. And what I want to highlight from this, especially for Christian nationalist Christians, but all of us, is the 3 things he's tempted by. The first one is to control his situation, because it is, he's fasted 40 days and 40 nights. He's fasted for a long time. He's famished. And the first one is, hey, if you want to, if you're the Son of God, you can make these stones turn into bread, which, by the way, in We Are the World, they totally mess that up because they say that he actually turned.
That happens. Well, I know you do. I guess
one
I
of them
do
is
too.
like, when Jesus turned the stones into bread, and it's like, no, actually that was Satan that tempted him to do that, and he said no, so don't include that in We Are the World.
People always screw up the lyrics, man. They always get them wrong.
It was just like, just at least read where the lyrics are coming from. But anyway, so and Jesus says, no, man did not, or man, that's translation, humans do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. But the point of it is that Jesus was not willing to take control of his situation and try to run the show. So that's temptation one. Temptation two is where he's kind of put up to the top, like a picture being at the top of the temple of Jerusalem. And the temptation is throw yourself down, you'll be saved by angels. So it's fame, it's celebrity, it's really wowing people, right? So that's the second one. Again, he resists that. The third one is power and political power, frankly, that's offered to him on a platter, and he's like, no. And the point of this is that Jesus had to resist control, had to resist celebrity fame, had to resist power to be able to be the sacrifice that he ended up being. Because dying on a cross, unjustly crucified, can't happen if you're trying to control everything, if you're all into it for fame, or if you're trying to gain
you'd probably, at the very least, you'd avoid being crucified.
Exactly. At the very least, it's like, just give me some other method, but it's the point being that I think this is one of the things that a lot of Christians, when they think about their country, they forget about, because what they think is that, as a Christian, God is going to, allow me to be the person that's going to sway things. God's going to make me the person who's become really well known and honored because of my actions.
Onward, Christian soldiers.
Sure. Yeah. And God is going to allow me to become really have some power in this situation. Because like one of the first guys I read about even said that he's found the door open and he prayed and said, okay, God, should I go in? Is this something I'm supposed to do? And he's like, I didn't hear a no, so I went in. Well, to me, you don't need to hear a no on some things. If you're going to be committed to this thing, it's a clear no not to be involved in this, because Christianity is not about, control, fame, and power. And if that's what you want your life to be, then you probably are better off not choosing to follow Christ and instead go. There's plenty of other ways to do that. But what is offensive to me, frankly, is when people combine the two and say, oh, yeah, go God. And so therefore, I am going to go and be this famous person who's going to storm this corrupt system and change it all in the right way. And to me, you're already so far off base from the whole point of this thing, because guess what? If Jesus didn't storm the gates of Rome, but actually said to Pilate instead, actually, my kingdom's not of this world. That's your kingdom thing. This is not my kingdom thing. But if you're already about storming the gates so that you can bring in the kingdom that you want, then you're already on a different script. You're not reading from the same script that Jesus read from. So therefore, you're off base if you're calling yourself after him.
Or, my feelings about Paul.
Yeah.
Paul the Apostle. And I won't blame Canada, I'll blame Paul. And, this is, I think, is one of those places where Paul diverged from Jesus completely. And because Paul, the whole idea of the onward Christian soldiers is kind of, there's the idea of, what is it, miles Christianas, the Christian soldier, miletes Christi, which which Paul refers to in one of his letters. That one could be a soldier of Christ, a Christian soldier, and that there was a little bit of that built into it as Christianity took root. The armor of God, which was another part of this way of thinking, well, that ultimately led to chivalry. There, the imagery of knights and armored with, their armor has religious, it's been sanctified, and so suddenly you have weapons and pieces, war machines, things that you would fight a war with, are being sanctified in a fight that I don't think Jesus would take up. So suddenly you're fighting for God against the infidel. And, eventually you end up with the armed nobility of Europe, who are, as they refer to themselves, defenders of the faith.
Well,
you have crusades.
And again, as we've said before, I have a much higher view of Paul than you do. However,
Yes. I think the man's a genius. But
you see him as kind of a twisted genius, and I mean, but you have to admit though that Christianity is not the only religion that has dealt with either a sanctified soldier or with power.
No argument. Hey, no argument. No argument whatsoever.
Yeah. So it's not a purely Christian thing. But
no, it's not.
It is one of the areas.
Anytime you militarize faith, religious faith, you're going to have a problem.
Right. And the other part of that the church, I think, has struggled with in various countries where it's become a faith in a different nation is, some people have said, well, then Christians can never be soldiers, which means as soon as you become a Christian, you cannot be involved in any wars. But then the majority of Christianity said, but that doesn't seem right either. And so there is a tension there between how do you follow Jesus and how can you be a citizen in a particular nation. And obviously for the purposes of this podcast, we don't need to reduce that tension. But I think even more broadly, I think it's a good tension to keep. It's an important question.
I think the overwhelming majority of Christians, I don't think that they're not having this fight inside their heads. I think it's the very rare. I think it's, unfortunately, to me, the solution to our whole problem is to reintroduce Jesus to his church.
Well,
and I think it would be great if more Christians came to Jesus and stepped away from their institutional churches, because I think some of where this comes from is the institutional church. It's the nature of the institutional church it's completely transcended the do unto others. Where is that in all of this?
Yeah, because I think one of the dynamics in Christianity that makes it so challenging is that on the one hand, Christianity makes its home in any given culture, right? So I mean, that's the point.
Why not?
That's right. Yeah. But it also is meant to challenge and be in tension with any given culture. And what tends to happen in some expressions of it is they lose the challenge. And so it just becomes kind of a spiritual reflection of the culture and its norms and, whatever that is. Or on the other side, it becomes this thing that's totally separate from the society at large. And interestingly, I think this you think of like the Mennonites or something, for example, as one example of being removed. But evangelicalism, as I use the term, but also fundamentalism, which is what most people call evangelicalism today, in my opinion. Anyway, but both of those were very reactive against the culture starting about the 1900s in the US. A lot of it because of some of the ways the thinking was going and science, and and theories of evolution and all of that. So they kind of circled the wagons and said, no, we're going to kind of create our own place to be who we're going to be because we've lost the culture. The weird thing, though, to get it up to today, the weird thing is that with the moral majority, then a lot of those groups suddenly became very involved in politics and the culture in a way that they were not for quite. If you go back pre-moral majority, it was not as much of a force, but then it became this force that became much more politicized and much more engaged in politics in this country. And I think that at least explains part of where we are today, because it was separatist.
They were, I think, to a degree, they were seduced. I think to a degree they were seduced into politics by guys like Newt Gingrich.
I mean, that, it's possible. I mean, I think that, but to me,
very cleverly, because there was a whole point when they were beginning to evangelicals were running for school boards. And they were beginning to, the way that they were.
But the reason why, I mean, why were they doing that? Part of it is that they felt like our kids are being indoctrinated in stuff that we don't agree with.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is something that's continuing today among the more conservative, not just Christians, but culturally conservative people. That's their fear, is that if I send my kids to school, they're going to be indoctrinated in this very different way of thinking and being than what has happened in our family. And that's why there's so much homeschooling going on, for example, is that people are just like, I can't trust the public schools because they don't value my beliefs.
I'm simply pointing out that what, as a political strategy, it was great. It was genius. I'm not knocking them for 2 seconds. What they did was very smart. They were astute politically. They really were.
Short term, maybe, not long term, but because I don't feel like they've actually won what they wanted to win. I mean, they wanted to try to get the heart of the nation back in line with their own beliefs and views, and I feel like that hasn't been won at all.
Day one, minute one, they had that thought in their heads, and then when the political power corrupts.
Sure.
Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And when they got that taste of political power, I bet the political power tasted much sweeter than any kind of mammon that was in their mouth. Man, that was better than manna from heaven. Because manna from heaven, you could eat and then you're done. Political power, you could do stuff with.
But I mean, in my opinion, at this point, that power is that was tasted is in tatters, and it's very unclear what's going to happen.
Where is that?
So that's where, for me, the long-term, that strategy long-term, it looks like was actually a really big failure, because my guess is that after the 20th, there's going to be such a pushback on people from those cultural and religious perspectives that, that they're going to despair. They're going to feel like
Could we say that they rendered unto Caesar that which was God's?
Yeah, you can take that one there. I'm not going to go there, but what I am going to say,
I'm just being difficult.
But this is where what Biden does becomes absolutely critical to the future of the country for me.
Great.
Because if what Biden and others say on that side of the aisle is, we now have the mandate to do everything we want to do nationwide and nobody can stop us, then
all right. If the things we were talking about, okay, let's be clear. The mandate to do stuff, there's nothing in that mandate that is actually bad. Look, if you want infrastructure,
not from your point of view, but see, that's the thing.
But it's not an abstraction. It's not a black box of who knows what it is. These are identifiable things that, gosh, their mandate is get this pandemic under control. I'm sorry.
Pandemic's not a problem. I think that's a subcategory of the things people are afraid of.
No, it's not, because you can't get the economy going until you get the pandemic under control.
No. The pandemic's a huge problem. I'm just saying, in terms of the political and cultural divide.
And I'm telling you, this is part of the political. This is part of how it's going to get done.
Sure. But I'm more talking about things like controlling language and how people speak about different things. I'm talking more about
who is going to do that? I don't even know.
Well, that's what they've already
do that.
What they do that all the time. That's like constant.
That's such an abstraction.
No. It's very practical.
What's like, for instance, give me for instance, what?
Well, like like the deal about what type of language can be used in the Senate.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, like that you shouldn't use mother, father, those types of things, that they're going to try to use much more, gender neutral and type of language in their conversations together. See, the thing is that plays well in some cultures in the US, and it plays as fears, nightmares actually occurring in other parts of the country. And to me, you were talking about root causes of all of this. To me, part of the root cause is that this country is not one culture, and it never has been, and it never will be. And until people realize we're multiple cultures that are trying to work together and are going to have different opinions, we're not going to be able to get
one thing. Can I point out one thing?
Sure.
The issue that we're talking about, that you brought up, is certain religious people have a problem with other people who are struggling with their sexuality.
No, I'm not talking about sexuality even.
No, but you said words. You said in terms of what we call mother, father, they're looking for gender neutral words. Well, right. This is not being done in a vacuum. It's not like suddenly someone said, hey, let's make the whole country learn the metric system. Right.
Oh no, not at all. It's not. But here's my
point. It came from someplace very, very human.
Sure, but my point is
need to try to help people.
Well, they're trying to help people, but they're using a top-down approach to enforce a way that people see, think, and speak. And see, this is the thing. This is the deal. If I can convince anybody, that's the problem, is the method by which change is being brought about. You can't do change from top down. You talked a little while ago about trickle down. Well, to me, that's another version of trickle down. We're going to do it up here, and then we're going to legislate in a way that's going to make everybody have to do it the same way across the entire nation. And to me, we're not a homogeneous nation. We never have been. And the same people that love diversity don't want diversity in certain instances because they care for the people that are being hurt and oppressed. I'm not trying to say truth or falsehood. What I'm saying is that you can't legislate that kind of change, because you're trying to change cultures through legislation. And I can tell you from reading Christian history, many Christians in power have tried to legislate cultural change, and it does not go well. It does not go well. But I'm seeing that being repeated here. And not just in the US, but even globally, it's repeated by Americans because we're convinced that we're right, that we're really the caring people. We're the ones who know how to do it the best way. And so we're going to set up laws, rules, set up organizations, fund programs to make everybody think like we do. And I'm just saying that is dangerous.
Is it a cultural, but you're calling it a cultural change. If I'm trying to show respect, if I'm trying to show respect to a group of people who suddenly have said, please stop treating us disrespectfully, please, this is hard enough, can you please stop disrespecting us? And we are the culture, we didn't know, we're sorry, we didn't know.
Who's the voice saying that? Who is the cultural voice saying, we're sorry, we didn't know that, let's do it differently? Is that the entire nation united together saying that? That's the problem.
If we waited for the entire nation. Look,
no, Randy, you don't have to wait. Nobody's waiting for anything.
Look, if we waited for the entire nation, there are parts of this country that would still believe in miscegenation.
Right. So,
okay? But there are parts of this country that would would not have races mixed.
So what you're saying is we really do need the top-down approach. We need to power up and make sure that everybody in the country.
I didn't say that. You just put words into my mouth. I simply said, all right,
But you're saying that it's ineffective otherwise, that's the only way we're going to save people is by doing
I have not suggested a solution. I'm simply saying I'm looking at the problem. I'm not suggesting a solution. I'm not saying you have to use these words. You haven't said I haven't said anything like that. I want to understand I really honestly I want to get to the nature of what's bothering the people.
Okay.
Words are, I want to understand, and I'm honestly asking what is the nature. Let's dig in. Okay, you referring to these people in a way that they would like to be referred to is problematic. Okay, understood.
No.
Why is that problematic?
No. What's problematic is the way that we're making people do that. That's the problem. It's not the thing itself. It's just like when I was in Kenya, I was surprised when I saw an editorial in one of the major Kenyan newspapers after Obama had been there and in Tanzania, and it was really anti-Obama. And I'm like, what the heck is that? He's got Kenyan roots. Well, what happened was in Tanzania, he gave a talk that said, here is how Tanzanians should treat different people. You need to change the way you do things. And you know what the response was from the press there? The response was, what's this new colonialism? What's this patriarchalism and colonialism where somebody can come to our country and tell us what we're supposed to do? That's the thing that I think undergirds a lot of what's going on in this nation, because we are not one nation. If I lived in South Carolina was not Texas. That's South and Southwest. And guess what? South Carolina was not LA. Big surprise to everybody in South Carolina and LA. They're different places. They even use different words, different food, different ways of interacting, all of that.
Understood. So theoretically, I'm asking, should different parts of the country be allowed to have different kinds and levels of, call them civil rights? Let's say one part of the country decides, let's say a little corner of Idaho or Montana or way out there, or the Dakotas someplace, they suddenly decide no black people.
Well, that's a red herring. Because a red herring.
We're talking about LGBT. We're talking about LGBT people.
The real question is, what are we allowed to be local about and have differences, and what are we not allowed to do? That's a federal versus states' rights kind of thing.
I agree. That's the question. What?
Right.
Okay. Who are you allowed to be prejudiced against locally? Let's
no
locality have its own.
But that's a loaded way to say it. That's a loaded.
But if you're on the receiving end, because Randy,
sure. Dude, I get it.
My tribe has been on the receiving end.
I know, but here's the thing. Guess what? There are other people now that are feeling oppressed by the Democrats. But you're not allowing, they can't feel that way. You can't feel that way. That's invalid. Why is that invalid? If that's what they feel, then maybe we need to listen to them and work on it and figure it out. I'm listening. Literally, I am listening. I'm asking you. I'm not from South Carolina, so I'm not.
I'm not denying anyone. I'm continuing to ask the question. So what is the thing that is bothering you? I honestly, because that's the thing that I want to know. You're worrying. You're telling me it's the language, and I'm saying
no. It's not the language. Okay, I'll restate it. It is not the language. It is the approach to cultural change that we take in this country. That's the problem.
But it's civil rights. It's culture. It's not culture. It's civil rights.
Language is civil rights?
My God, yes.
Then I guess we have to have someone like the French did for a while, watching all the language we use and determining what's valid and invalid use of the English language. I don't see how you do that in a way that doesn't take away freedoms.
There are certain
what
words
you need to do is work locally. You work locally You work among people in different communities and regions of the country to develop the kind of civil rights and freedoms that we're talking about as a nation.
How do you create sensitivity in people? You really think you can do it by simply telling them, hey, a couple ads on TV, you need to be more sensitive to these people,
okay,
and that's going to get it done?
Does setting up some new laws make people sensitive?
No,
that doesn't work either. So
I think you're confusing making people sensitive with really protecting other people's rights.
Well, I don't. I mean, I think that the point of it is that how does social change happen? And it doesn't happen from top down. It just doesn't.
But when you say social change, all right, I want to try to understand what it is that you're protecting. What's
cultural diversity, and cultural integrity.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. To me, cultural diversity means you have people of multi races living in one place.
Well, that's cultural. What's cultural? So you mean one culture, though? One culture, but there's lots of people that are different in that one culture. Is that what you mean?
To me, that's America.
Well, what I mean is that you have multiple cultures.
I think the great thing about America is that we have multiple cultures and there's this amazing blending that happens.
Except that the Civil War and this war right now are both ones that are basically about the struggle between federal and states' rights and who gets to say what. And that's where we have a perennial problem in the US because I don't
think this is about states' rights. I don't think this is about federalism.
Okay.
I think we're fighting the Civil War. I think the Civil War is still being fought in this country.
Right. And Civil War states' rights was a part of the Civil War. You can't say.
No. Oh, Randy, don't go there. Please don't go there.
I think you're read Randy, your history. I'm not saying that's the only issue.
Every single secession, every state as it seceded, they wrote a document. They said why they seceded, and not a single one of them mentioned states' rights. The North talked about states' rights, not the South. The South. Every state seceded for one reason. It's understood. You needed slavery for your economy. Got it. It was about slavery.
And again, that's the other thing I think that is a real problem for us is that we reduce everything to one thing, and that's all that explains everything. And we do that multiple times in Western culture. And for me, I love the diversity of issues, the multiplicity of issues. I think that makes it a way more to get to actual solutions. You need to allow for multiple problems to be going on at the same time instead of it just being boiled down to one thing. That's it. End of story.
So all right. So it's not just slavery.
No.
But when they seceded, their documents said we're seceding because of slavery. What are we to make of them?
But you see everything.
Why didn't you say so?
You see everything from the macro political level. What I'm talking about.
I'm looking at it from documents. Hey, look.
Right, the documents.
I love reading history. I adore reading history, and the thing about history is that real history.
What about grassroots autobiographies? What about grassroots biographies and autobiographies? Do those count of individuals that are in those situations?
Well, that's one source of information, but
and maybe even more valid than official documents.
No, not necessarily. No.
That's where we have a difference in historiography. To me,
in autobiography, you have to read with
Okay, let's say biography then. Biography.
It depends upon the biographer because not all biographers are very good at sourcing. Some of them are rather liberal with inventing dialogue that never happened. And
so political documents are the only secure.
No. I'm not saying political. I'm saying sort of. In what you would call them is original source. All we know about history is, hey, you got a thought, write it down. We don't know what cave people thought because they didn't write stuff down. Hey, I know what Paul thought because he wrote stuff down, and I know exactly what Paul thought.
Right.
When the people were seceding from the Union, they wrote down why they were seceding, and it all came down to slavery, which was understandable. That was
okay. All right, it all came down to slavery, and this one, they're all a bunch of hicks that believe the Q thing.
I didn't say that.
Just get rid of it. I know I'm overstating it, but seriously, that's what it feels like. It feels like there's only one way to see this. Any other way is wrong. and we need to move on. And that's where it gets frustrating to me, because what I learned, this is where this comes from for me. It doesn't come from me being Southern or whatever, because I'm not even Southern. It comes from actually being in other countries with dramatically different cultures. That if I came in with my own paradigm and interpreted everything according to my paradigm, I would be gravely mistaken and misunderstand what was going on multiple times. And what I feel like's happening in this country is both sides of the aisle only have one way to see the other side, and we are gravely misunderstanding each other. And that's why we end up doing really ridiculous things like what happened on Wednesday, is because we don't understand each other. We don't know what makes each other tick, and we don't know how to form a national government that's representative of all of the people, or 80% of the people of the country. The best we can pull off is 50, 60% or something of the country as a whole. So that to me is a major problem. And until we solve that, we're going to keep doing this again and again, pendulum swing back and forth, and that will be our reality. So that's my deal.
But my question still stands, because there is something that you are protecting, and it's I'm not judging. I'm honestly not judging anything. There's the great fear of what the Democrats will do. It had nothing to do with the legislative things. It has to do with imposing. And again, the irony, I got to tell you, the irony is a little hard, but okay, of Democrats imposing cultural things upon these people that they don't want. That's the scariest thing. All right, let's put that there. There's no immediate concern for the legislative things that need to get done, the economy, getting people money in their bank accounts so that they can feed themselves, so that getting kids back to school. I mean, really, this is the stuff that has to get done. Hey, if the other stuff happens, I'm really sorry. I sincerely hope that's not something that any of the Democrats are focusing on, because there's stuff that's so much more important than that. And honestly, frankly, I agree with you. If any Democratic legislator is thinking about that, they need to get off the merry-go-round, because we got bigger fish to fry. I agree. This is no one should be wasting their time right now with that. We have so many bigger problems. Among them, we have to. Here's just my gut about things that are going to happen, and it's going to get bloody. It's going to get violent because it is. Because there's a lot of anger. Yeah, but I think that violence will be mitigated by law enforcement as it begins to assert itself, and by the fact that it's just going to get very expensive for people. But then I think something else is going to begin to happen, and I think we're going to begin to deal with a pandemic. The vaccine will suddenly come out, and some of what we're enduring is just the craziness of a year of living in plague years. I think that's making a lot of people stir crazy, frankly. So I agree.
I'm not sure all of this could have happened without the pandemic.
This is like a shadow upon us, and I think finding hope, a modicum of hope in the thing, and if you look at, especially here in Southern California, 1 in 5 people has it now. This is terrifying. It's terrifying living in and you can't negotiate with the goddamn thing. Mm-hmm. It just shows up, and even people who I think just organically, I think when some of this cloud begins to lift upon us, people will look upon each other, I hope, a little more open-mindedly. I do. And I think when suddenly people are able to go back to work, and there's now money in their pockets, and their kids are back at school, and they're not worried about their kids getting sick, and then suddenly yeah, there will be a modicum of normalcy returning, and I think our mood will begin to lift a little bit. I honestly do, and some of what you and I are really trying to accomplish here, even with as testy a conversation as we're having, and honestly, I do hear you. I honestly do, and I think I honestly think that I.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I'm doing my. I mean,
you are, you know.
Tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I mean, part of what makes this, if we had a true believer on the right, and you're a true believer on the left, I feel like I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just,
But these are very different creatures. They're different creatures.
Here's the thing. The point I'm trying to make is that, the point I'm trying to make is I've lived on both sides of the aisle and outside of this country.
Yes, you have.
And so that my number one concern is to get both sides heard and both sides in conversation with each other in a way that can move us forward. I have worked regularly, probably more with people on the left than on the right, just given that I've been in LA for 20 some odd years. However, I was also in South Carolina, and I have family in Texas, although that doesn't mean anything politically at this point.
Not anymore. No, that's
so.
Not to go blue.
So I think I'm a pretty mixed bag. The thing that.
But a lovely mixed bag, right?
The thing I'm concerned about the most, I hope it happens like you were just describing, because what I want to see is this country actually. You talk about civil rights. I want to just use that first word, that this country we could actually relate to each other in a civil manner.
Yes,
as we go through all of the change that we're in, and as we figure out what we're going to do together in the future. I hope that we can do that in a way. Can I quote Michel Foucault?
I wish you would.
What Michel Foucault, at one point, he talked about two kinds of power. There's weak power, which is power through coercion. And then there's strong power, which is the power to attract. And what I hope is that we get leaders on both sides that are really good at the strong power, that they can really draw people together by the vision, the direction, what they're wanting to do. What I fear as kind of worst case scenario is if we just kind of fall into the power through coercion on both sides, and it's just whoever wins or whatever. And that's where I love the checks and balances of this country, because it actually allows people with that weaker power, with that coercion, to you can limit them. They're still in there, but you limit them by the checks and balances. It's like, yeah, we know you really want to just make everybody whatever you think is right, but within our system, there's a balance. And then what we always hope, and has definitely been lacking, what we hope is that the presidential part of that is someone who majors on the strong power, that power to attract, that power to draw people together. And clearly that is not the kind of leadership that we've had for the past 4 years.
We want a president to reflect us.
Right.
We want it to be kind of the best version of us, kind of, that we can maybe be, but that's it's
I hope I hope we get there
than anything else.
But no, and again, I think my sister reminded me when I was asking her about listening to some of the podcasts. She said that it's actually the testy parts, just because we allow each other to talk and don't try to shut each other down completely. that to her is really fascinating about these podcasts. And it encourages her to then think about, well, then how could I do this with friends that I know have very different points of view?
That's exactly it. That's why as soon as I thought, but this was a good conversation. And then they got banning and testing. I thought, oh, now it's good. Because really, look, all right, we're going to give away a little secret here. The whole point of the exercise really is that, look, we get to a testy point, and rather than suddenly jumping through the screens and strangling each other,
right.
we actually, the conversation finds a civil way, because really, though we might be pushing each other, at the end of the day, look, when I said to you, I hear you, I hear you. I don't necessarily agree with it, but
sure,
I hear it.
Yeah,
I hear it, right. and
I know where you live, but I'm not. I know where you live, but I'm not going to get some friends and go break into your house because of this, because strategically that's really foolish.
Yeah,
like, use your head, think long term, decide what you're going to do that might actually bring good, rather than just blowing things up because you're frustrated, upset, or tired from the pandemic. We got to quit doing that. I mean, that,
and a funny thing happens, because as someone like me, as I sit and I think about what's bothering you, part of I'm like one of the rats trying to find itself out of a maze. It's problem solving. All right, how do we solve it? How do we accommodate? How do we find a softer, gentler way so that the people that my side is trying to protect are protected, but the sensibilities that you are, are, all right, yes, I understand. It's, we ain't all moving at the same speed. And this too has to be accommodated if we're going to coexist as peacefully as we possibly can. And so,
well, and if we're going to achieve some common goals that we have in this nation, and that's, I hope people see that there's actually, for anybody, whatever side of the aisle you are and however far you are on your side of the aisle, you're actually benefiting from this compact that we've made with one another to be a commonwealth. And stick with this thing. Don't just blow it up because you're frustrated or don't feel represented or you're afraid, which is more likely, but instead stay engaged for the long haul. Have conversations, work things through, and see where we go, and trust that it's good. You don't have to take control of this thing. Nobody's asking. I don't know, maybe this is weird for me to say, but I'm just going to say, nobody's asking for you to be the hero for the country. Okay. What we're asking is that we all be the best of citizens. Which means a very different thing from, we actually, our democratic responsibility is to be the best of citizens, not to make ourselves a de facto leader of cadres of people or something. That's not democracy. Democracy is we actually vote, and then whoever wins the vote, whether we like it or not, whether we even have issues with the vote or not, whoever wins gets to be the leader for a period of time.
We count on the wisdom of the majority.
Yeah. And then, like, for me, I've talked to some people that they're still not sure about this election. Well, here's the thing. One of the things that you can do proactively, if you're really not clear on this, is let's get our representatives locally, because this is a local issue, to figure out how to handle a massive increase in mail-in ballots in a way that you can live with. That actually is something that's solvable. That's something we can figure out before the next elections, because guess what? We are going to have more mail-in ballots in the future. And there are states that have had it for a long time and they've figured out how to work it right. There are other states that may have screwed it up. But the point is, whatever state you're in, you need to work toward that goal with those mail-in ballots, if that's your concern. And you can do that as a citizen. You have every right to work with others to make that happen. But what you can't do is get some friends together, arm yourself, and go try to take over power from somebody. That's not allowed.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
And what you can't do is ignore a part of the country that feels disenfranchised right now because of the way things are going. And I am thankful. I mean, I feel like Biden so far is trying really hard to be the president that's bringing people together. Now, whether he can pull that off or not, whether that'll continue with, as he fills out all of the folks that have to work to run a nation this size, is that going to continue?
He's just trying to solve problems. Really and truly, he's not trying to make problems.
And I'm with you. I mean, if we could just focus on the pandemic and actually rebuilding trust in among a wider part of the population in our politics and voting, if we could just achieve those two things, and obviously with getting the economy back on its feet, that would be huge. And I would say that if Biden pulled that off in 4 years, Biden would be seen as, wow, that was, he was a really important president in this nation.
My fingers are crossed.
He helped us through those, let's say repairing the economy, pandemic, and just figuring out how to repair the political system.
I agree with you, Randy. I agree with you. I agree with you.
And I hope all of our representatives understand that that's the, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, that's the game right now. That's the game for them. And again, if our representatives go in a different direction, guess what? We have the power as citizens in a democracy to get in their face or to, and I don't mean that in a,
for us.
Yeah. And we will in fact vote you out if you don't focus on that. If you're focusing on all your little side hobbies or whatever it is, then we're going to vote you out, because that's not what we need leaders for right now. And I really want to see a robust democracy come out of this.
Here.
That we re-engage. It's and I think that's where, as usual,
as robust as this conversation, Randy.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That's where what I hope more and more people are willing to go there with some of these conversations with each other, and then because what we always do is we come back around. Oh, actually, here's some things that we not just agree on, but here's some things that we strongly and passionately agree on, and we can work on this together, that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that happens all over this country in multiple conversations.
Once you start on one thing, suddenly you're doing two things, and then three things, and four things. Hey, and it's learning how to accommodate the differences. And
And even debating what differences can be accommodated and what differences should not be, and why. That's all part of the process to me, that can happen. I really believe that can happen among people.
You know what helps? What helps? If your goal isn't always to win every argument.
Yes.
It ain't about winning the argument. Sometimes it's the point of the argument is to hear what everyone is saying.
Yeah. And I think it's often what comes out of the different positions in an argument that then become the stuff of the future, the stuff that we put together to form the future together. So it really isn't, if I win my side, have I gotten anywhere with the ultimate goal, which is that we move forward together? Well, not really. It's more like we figure out where we agree, disagree, what we can continue to disagree on and be okay, what we really can't continue to disagree on and be okay. And then we have the stuff that we need to move forward as a country. But enough of this, and I know you agree, enough of this crud.
There's a song in my head that just popped up.
Yeah.
End on this. Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi.
Oh, yeah.
Has a line, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Yes.
Let's not do that to our paradise. Let's not.
That's right.
We have something of a paradise.
That globally,
we how to live in it together.
Globally, and it's not a pride thing. It's not a nationalistic thing. It's just from different places that I've lived. This is an amazing place to live. on the planet right now. It just is. It's got its challenges. It's got its dark places. It's got its flaws. It's got its, all of that. But overall, still, I mean, come on. I mean, if you live in this country, it's a pretty amazing place to live. I'm not going to say it's the best. I'm not going to say we're the greatest. I'm not into that stuff. But what it is that we've got something here that's really, it's worth preserving. And that's what's sad to me is there just seems to be a lot of American speak out there that's like, we're so bad, that we've got to rip it up and start over again. And to me, that's probably the stuff that I want to protect more than anything, because it's like, yeah, we've got problems, but you don't know bad if you haven't lived in some other countries that are between governmental systems, or between dictators, or that are struggling with famine, or
don't live in Somalia.
Right. I mean, and
it ain't the libertarian paradise of Somalia.
Right. I mean, that's, it's and that's not saying anything negative towards Somalians. It's saying that right now, that is a really tough place to be in the world. Ethiopia has been at different times. However, it's, there are times when Ethiopia was like, wow, this is a great place to live. It's just hit some hard times.
You need to have a government to work stuff out. And, you might as well have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, because the alternative really sucks.
And here it is. You need to have a government by the people. Wait, I'm missing one of them.
Of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yes.
But not in spite of the people.
Right. Who might be the side you didn't vote for. And that's okay. Because guess what? You're still in a country that can occur. And what concerns me is people that have decided, and this is more on the conservative side, people that have decided because of the way this election went, that we may never be able to trust the electoral system again. To me, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're using short-term thinking.
Paradise to put up a parking lot.
Yeah, because here's the thing. You got 2 years, and guess what? In 2 years, citizens get to vote again on a number of representatives. So think, if you really think it's as bad as that, then why don't you start working toward what you're going to do in 2 years to begin to move things in whatever direction you want it to go.
Here's the thought. If you're going to run for office and you want to win, you need to have policies. You need to be pushing policies that people want. It's retail politics is buy, sell. You are selling an idea, and you need people to buy it.
Right.
If the majority of people want to buy what the other guy is selling, well, that means something. And if not enough people want to buy what you're selling, well, that means something too. And well, here's the part where I'm going to go back to the earlier part of our conversation. You put on your big boy pants, your big girl pants,
right?
And you look at yourself in the mirror. You say, you know what? I'm in the minority here.
Yep. Well, and that's, what all of us need to decide, in my mind, and maybe this is a bad game to choose, but it works for me, is it's like, if you're playing Monopoly and you start losing, and then suddenly you decide, we're going to change all of the rules of Monopoly so that I can win, then you've got a problem. What you need to do is to acknowledge, yes, we're not playing.
So like when you pass go, you get the whole bank instead of just the 200.
Right. No, what happens is, guess what? The way games work is sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And if you're in a downturn or you're losing right now, that's where those pants you're talking about come in, because you've got to say, all right, I need to take responsibility for my situation. And I have got to figure out, how am I going to change things, or connect with people that can help me change things in a way I am powerless to change.
Hey,
get it done. You know
what, Randy? I think actually you hit it, and I think that's actually it's the point. Help.
Yeah.
Help. And sometimes help can come from any number of places, but you have to be open to it. You have to be You have to be able to listen to the help. Hey, you have to be able to go to a guy like Randy. for instance. And really, and listen, with a guy like Randy, if you need help,
Right. Connect.
And I say this as someone who hates therapy, saved my life.
Yeah. And I'd say, just if you have done well in this pandemic, which there are people who have, then I would say a way to take responsibility for that, rather than feeling bad about it, take responsibility for it and figure out who you can help, who got slaughtered by this thing that needs some help, and help them. Enough.
You know how good that would feel? And at the end of the day, even if no one else knew,
right,
you would know.
Oh, totally. Yes.
And suddenly, and your whole life would change, literally. Especially if you didn't tell anyone, because your secret about yourself, how really good you are.
And that's where, there was a book that came out, 70s or something, called Small is Beautiful. The subtitle was Economics as If People Matter. But the part I wanted to mention for this purpose is that's where, to me, local matters so much, because just one person or one family helping another family, it actually can have exponential effect long term in a way that doesn't blow up people's lives. Whereas amping it up and, going and we're going to just rip this thing from some other people we don't trust or something, that just destroys lives, probably including your own, which again takes us back to the beginning of this. The better strategy, the wiser strategy is to say, no, I am going to engage with some other people that I know I'm in relationship with, or I see that are near me. I'm going to make a difference in their lives. And that's where I'm going to put my energy. And like you say, I think you're going to find that is going to be vastly more powerful as far as what your response to all of this turmoil, the pandemic and the political turmoil is. And it's going to deepen your family. Whereas again, I think with a lot of these people, they blew up their lives. That's the effect of what they did. Their lives have now been destroyed versus
imagine if they'd all showed up to instead deliver random acts of kindness.
Right.
Imagine what this country would be. No, I'm going to be kinder. I'm going to be kinder than you. I'm going to be kinder than you.
Right.
Wow.
That's right. I mean, then suddenly, to me, suddenly, and if you want to be super negative about politicians, it's almost like if everybody started really being kind to each other, some of the politicians would be like, oh, I need to change my tune, because clearly if I don't change, they're going to run off without me. So I better decide to, it can even have a political impact. And so I just, I love the local because of that, because it actually has more power than people think it does, and can have more impact long-term than people think it can. And I would just urge all of us in this time where, I wake up sick of the pandemic and sick of all the politics, and I just want to go, I want to go kick a cat or something, but it's like, get over that. No. we don't have a cat in the house, so I can say that without, so, but it's, that's not, you may feel like you want to do that, but that's not the answer. It's just not. That's not the solution. And
an act of kindness to the cat would probably make you feel a hell of a lot better.
Exactly. No, it would, and it would actually do something positive and beneficial.
At the end of the day, I don't know, bonding with people always beats not bonding with them.
It does. And I've found, stereotyping other people and pushing them away really just corrupts you. But being willing to engage people and have them change your stereotypes about people, that's where the fun is in life. And that's where the deepening happens in life.
Be the person who changes the stereotype in the other person's head.
Yeah.
To be the person who makes the other person think, wow, the stereotype I had about people like you is just completely wrong.
Most likely, if you're going to do that, you've got to get out there and be willing to have people stereotype you, because that's where it starts. But you
Well, we do that automatically.
Exactly. No, that's what we automatically do. So you've got to be willing.
That part's
to
already in motion. It's when you bump into. Hey, you know what? Look at us having this conversation.
Exactly.
Exactly. And an atheist and a Presbyterian pastor walked into a podcast together.
Hey, I like that. That's a good way to end it right there. I
there you go. End on that bombshell.
That's right. That's right.
You know, we'll talk on the other side, I'm sure, but
yeah, but you know, it's like I'm kind of tired of writing out scripts for what I'm going to say because it never follows them. No, I have to just think of it more as like preparation. It's like I'm just getting my mind ready for the conversation, but I'm not going to follow any of this. So, you know.
Well, you know, it's funny. Strangely, on the one hand, we kind of thought, God, we never get to talk about spirituality anymore, and yet we did.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
This was really a conversation about it, which at the end of the day, it's all good.
Oh, it is. I don't even think we should follow a script, really. It would be, we'd lose the authenticity. But it's just funny that I spend all this time prepping one, and then when we're done, I look over it and it's like, well, I got about 10% in there. So, you know, that's all right.
You know, there's the Marx Brothers. I'm a huge Marx Brothers fan, and the Marx Brothers, especially Groucho, they were notorious for taking the script and tossing it, and just not. Yeah. And there's a very famous story about a very famous writer named George S. Kaufman, who had written one of their early pieces. It was a play first called Animal Crackers.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
And when it was still on Broadway, there's a very famous story. Kaufman was backstage having a conversation with someone in the wings, and you know, Animal Crackers is being performed. And the guy talking to Kaufman realizes that Kaufman is not paying attention. And he says, "Hey," and Kaufman says, "Shh, I think I just heard one of the original lines."
I'm shocked it's still there. You know, that.
We hope for the best, and then stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. No, and
life, man, life.
That's right.
Oh, hey, you know, maybe this will end on what. There's that famous joke. The atheist should tell us. How do you make God laugh?
I don't know.
Tell him your plans.
Yes, very good. I like an atheist telling that joke too. That sort of adds something. Yeah. If I told it, it would just sound cheesy and like whatever.
Yeah, surely.
You know, so yeah.
And
that's good.
On that, Randy, I thank you. I thank you for the conversation.
Oh yeah. Well,
I look forward to the next one.
You know, and yeah, I always need a little rest after we talk though too. You know, it's and it's not in a bad way. It's just in
no.
Okay.
You got to get down for these.
Decompress a little bit. So yeah. All right. Well, you know, I think the 20th is going to kind of determine what we're going to talk about. Probably if it goes smoothly with, I hope, you know, more than 20,000 soldiers protecting the transfer of power. You know, then we may actually get to talk about something else, but we'll see.
If we could only talk to the writer of this thing and tell him to calm the hell down.
Yeah. I talked to
whatever you're smoking, dude.
I talked to a woman who lives in Denver, and she's near some Capitol thing there, and she said they've taken money out from the ATM, and they're just her business is nearby there, but she said we're just planning on hunkering down probably for the next, you know, for the week through and after, because there is conversation going on about you know, about not just a protest, but a protest where you bring your weapons, not to use them, but you just bring them. And it's like, wow, you know, that's just crazy stuff. You know, it's like,
well, if you bring a death machine, because that, you know, a gun is a death machine. I mean, it's a thing that's created. The whole point is to send a piece of metal flying very fast into a live target. That's really the point.
Well, and that, yeah, and it's
but if you bring a death machine to a protest, you know, and you use the death machine, someone could die, because that's what it was designed to do, to kill people. So if you use it correctly, you will kill somebody.
Well, and it's just stupid. I mean, again, it's like a really stupid idea.
This is someone making a point. I'm not sure what the voice inside their head is that is insisting that I have to do. have to do this. We have to do this.
Right. We've got to take a stand. It's like, really? So you showing up in Denver, wow, that's a really amazing stand. I mean, to me, it's just like, I don't get it. I just strategically, again, I mean, I know I keep saying
we're going to head off into a whole other direction, a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we better stop. But it just strategically, it just makes no sense. It's like, why would you think that's a good thing? I don't care what your point of view is. It's a really bad idea. Whatever your point of view is, it's just a bad idea. So I don't know.
I ain't going to argue with it.
Yeah, I know, that's true. That one's not going to get us anywhere. No argument at all. So.
We will see you all next time before we start it right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, have a good one, everybody. Take care, and we're going to make it through one way or another.
With a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They say paradise